Called
He
a
wastes
cold.
no time getting down to business.
It's cold roll, man. You just roll into it.
You're not even going to let me get hydrated? Jeez.
You've been hunting and working so hard that you've got to hydrate during the podcast. There's nothing wrong. I mean, Chad. Every time I talk to him, he's like eating. He's eating junk food too. You'd think he'd be eating like avocados and almonds or something like that. You know, being in that mountain lifestyle, but it's like Cheetos, and he's got kids though, so he's got those kid snacks in the house.
What's my excuse? People are always like, "You're a total health nut." I'm like, dude, I just ate like a salami and turkey sandwich. You know what I mean? On white bread.
Is that bad? That's not bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's very healthy. I'm sure there's healthier options. I could have like what Joe Rogan eats or something. MCT oil coffee and like elk with jalapenos or something.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a difference there. It's called money.
Yeah. And time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One time Chad called me for a business meeting and he was stuck in the snow on the side of the highway. And I was like, are you going to you can call another time? He's like, nah, it's fine. I'll get out. What do you need to talk about? I was like,
he's a beast, man.
He's crazy, dude.
Yeah, he is. He's been posting those Instagram reels and stuff with Roxy, his daughter, in there. I don't know if we should mention or host kids' names or not. What do you think?
It's not up to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I might bleep that out. I'm gonna go. It'll say with bleep. Yeah.
Who would name their daughter Bleep?
Yeah, that's right.
Terrible joke. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
Hey, I'll tell you what, we're working on this fair chase thing, a lot, because it bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot that, other hunting groups and things might have an opinion that hunting with hounds isn't fair chase. I want to, part of what we do is control the narrative, or at least define the narrative and try to get other people on board with it to help us make some headway here. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, why would another hunting group try to cast shade on another ethical hunting group? Is it a question of ethics? Or, are we just that far gone in our ethics? Our views?
No, I just think it's people always are quick to cast shade on what they don't know, right? It is crazy how much shade is thrown at hound hunters and trappers by the wider hunting community. But even within any like archery community, you have your longbow hunters that are like, oh, anything over 25 yards and you're not a real hunter and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I just think, yeah, people are bored.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of something that just popped up this past week. There's another podcast. It's a white-tailed hunting podcast, and I'm just going to call him out. His name is Don Higgins, and he writes for several major publications. And he got a question about allowing coyote hounds to run on his property during the off season. And he came out and he just said that is absolutely the worst thing that you can do, allowing dogs on your property, that dogs are even worse than letting people, and he calls it his sanctuary. And then he even goes on to make a cloaked threat that if people don't know how to keep dogs off their property, to send them to him and he can show them how to keep dogs off their property. This is a major voice in the hunting community. I'm just tired. I'm tired of it.
Yeah. I just, people, the horn porn kind of world has really taken extremely heavy root. That term, by the way, I originated it here on the podcast, but I got it from a coworker that while we were conservation officers, he coined that term, horn porn. And I just totally stole it from you.
antler autoerotica. That's what he used to say. We used to stop these guys in the middle of the night out there shining for deer and doing all that stuff. And Steve would come back to the, get back to the car, or we'd get back to the car, and they'd be legal. And he's like, we've been sitting out here for 4 hours trying to find a bad guy, and some guy that can't control his antler autoerotica thinks he's got to come out here and spotlight everything and pull us out of our hiding spot. And he just go on a rant. He's probably got a bunch of horn porn magazines by the toilet in his house.
What would be the raccoon hunting equivalent?
There is none, because we're not autoerotica about that.
That's true.
It's only sidehound guys and deer hunters.
Oh, bitch. Yeah, I just feel like, especially as the world's becoming more parcelized, where like people are having their smaller and smaller sections of land that they're running and monetizing. People are getting in their heads the craziest things to try to maximize their leases. And I'm saying this with air quotes, everyone, success rate, by trying to minimize like everything they can possibly think. And they're like, oh, dog barking. I mean, we know why, right? But we also know that there's little to no, there is data that proves that there's little to no effect from coon hounds running around in there catching deer. Also, don't you think it would be wise to desensitize your deer to vehicles, dogs, noise? So if you really want to do
that doesn't
success
count.
rate,
that doesn't count. It just, farmers have been doing that for.
I know.
Farmers have been doing that for 200 years. All you got to do is get on a John Deere tractor and wear a pair of brown Carhartts and go fix some fence, and deer will walk up to you.
In my world, it's white trucks, because all government rigs are white trucks. If you drive anything but a white truck, you will never see wildlife. But if you just drive those white trucks around, animals will just stand on the side of the road and stare. You had a coyote like 9 feet away from my truck on the side of the 2-track road, just staring at me like a week ago. And it didn't care at all. And that's anytime you take a personal rig out there, you won't see a thing. They're hiding. But yeah, that's what I always thought. It's like, you think you would want to desensitize your lease to these things to make it even better, so like you don't have to be sneaking around and stuff.
I don't know. I really think, and you did a podcast on the way animals see, the way the eyeball works, and I've personally witnessed this. I can walk across a field in a pair of blue jeans and a flannel shirt, and horses, they don't react to it. They know what I'm doing. But I can walk through that same field with camouflage on, and all of a sudden, the same horses that I feed every day, when I put the camouflage on,
they're just like, what the?
Yeah, they come unglued. They don't know what to do. They don't know how they're seeing it. And I feel like the deer are the same way. They start seeing these weird globs and blobs moving around, and people moving like predators, and all of a sudden they freak out. And you mentioned something that was key there. You mentioned the study, the study on the use of hounds and deer movement. And for some reason, deer hunters don't want to accept that. They don't want to recognize that as an authority. So my new line is, when people say, "Oh, that's an old study," it's like, well, my rebuttal is, where's your new science to say that it does? There is none.
And it's like, they're like, or you're cherry picking data, and it's like, well, yeah, I at least have a cherry tree. You know what I mean? Like,
that's not even cherry picking. I mean, that was a specific study done
for that reason.
Yeah. And it's
how about like the millions of pictures of dudes standing at coon trees with their dogs barking and a buck laying like 30 yards away in the bushes staring at them, laying down.
All you've got to do is make a post on Facebook and ask for those pictures, and you will get flooded with pictures or in video of walking right past a bed of deer, a buck, a doe, whatever, and you can hear the hound treat, and you just walk right past it, and then they videotape them walking back out.
Also, and I hear this all the time, aren't coyotes like the worst thing that's ever existed for deer? That's what I always hear all the time. So it's like, you would think you'd want them to be driven out. Hunting them with dogs is not only a way to eliminate them directly, but also to passively drive them out of an area, because traps don't elicit that evasion response like dogs do. Dogs physically drive them out of the area and keep them out, instead of just they get caught in a leg hold trap. and Skippy the coyote jumping around, and the other one is just like, I don't even know what that was. I don't really, he'll run off because it's got spooked, but he's not leaving.
Well, he'll even come back and you'll catch a double in the sets, So we've had several coyote sets over the years where we caught doubles. They come up and it's like, what are you doing? And then it's like, oh, what's that smell? Boom. And then you catch a double. So, trapping is very effective. There's no doubt about it. But the real rub is having this idea that somehow hounds are hurting your hunting opportunity. But anyway, I mean, and then they start attacking us on the fair chase thing. And that's where I really want to go and talk about in this podcast is we still got a lot of work to do on defining that narrative and developing that narrative and sharpening our skills as houndsmen to be able to talk about it. Because I can tell you, this is an example of something that I know several people have gone through. We were in Condon, Montana, and we were at the Sleeping Bear Lodge, and we were in there eating lunch, and a lady walked in, saw our hound rigs. We were lion hunting, came in, and she engaged us in this conversation about how hunting with hounds was not fair chase. But she was a spot and stalk hunter, and she said that it was not fair. So I bring that story up, and I tell that story because you've got to be prepared to have the conversation without flying off the handle.
That's right. First, control your anger, because I'm already rolling my eyes so bad it hurts,
Yeah.
Because your binoculars are totally fair. Like, how do you, this is the thing about ethics that's a slippery slope, is that it's all opinion, and so you got to be careful about that. You have yours, they have theirs, but at the same time, when it's clear with like undeniable, like I hate to say facts because it's the wrong word to use for opinions, but like when you have undeniable evidence to support your claim, that's what we need to practice without going crazy.
But
being a leader.
Shouldn't we be developing our opinions on facts?
Yes,
and not on emotion.
Yeah. When I break my leg, I want my doctor to have clear protocols on how to fix my broken leg. That's not based on his ideas and opinions, but based on facts that have worked for fixing broken legs and not getting infected and healing wrong. So yeah. Definitely. And that's why we're here.
Yeah. So, just diving into the narrative, I think one thing that we need to look at is this total, it seems to me more of a trend. There's a real resistance to science in our community, especially among hunters. And I understand why, because science was weaponized. I think you used that term last week when we were talking about it. Science was weaponized as a political weapon, just
by all sides,
by everybody.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, and it developed this huge distrust. Up until then, everybody was like, well, what does the science say? What does the science say? And one of the things that we have hung our hat on as a hunting community as a whole, not just houndsmen, not just, elk and deer hunters or whatever, is science-based wildlife management. So we have to either have to embrace the science or we have to totally reject it. And I don't see anybody doing that.
I find it especially frustrating because in our realm, in this particular context, people have such hardened opinions about wildlife and are 100% clueless for the most part about real wildlife science. And this is literally both sides. I had a guy talking to me yesterday, and I was just listening to him talking about how like bobcats will eat every turkey, coyotes will eat every deer fawn, and wolves will eat every elk if they're not like actively hunted like down. And I'm like, okay, I mean, they existed before humans were here. Obviously, humans play an important part in the ecosystem, and we need to manage predators. There is no question. But like, come on, they're not going to eat everything. That's great. They would die too. So it's like, and then I hear the other side that are like, actually, wolves can cure cancer if you pet them. You know what I mean? Like, there's those.
They can change
too.
Rivers. They can change rivers. They've done it in Yellowstone. So
it's just like, anyway. So yeah, it's really frustrating. But that's where like I work with a big game hunter who thinks hunting with hounds is like, quote, super trashy, end quote. So it's like, obviously I can.
Well,
it's important to, let's break it down.
Yeah, break that down, because I want to know, since you've engaged this guy, I want to know.
And he's my friend. We're friends. So like, yeah, I mean,
that's fine. Yeah. I've got friends as well that control large tracts of land that I hunt here on, and I respect their opinion because I don't own it. So they say, hey, wait until after deer season if you don't mind. Okay. That's your opinion. You control the property. And for the other 9 months of the year, pretty much I can hunt there. So I allow, I'm not going to stand there. I'll give them the right information and I'll say, hey, have you ever heard about this? Yeah, but I'd rather you not be there. Hey, that's your right as a landowner. I respect it and stuff like that. But let's hear what your friend had to say and why he thinks that hunting with hounds is super trashy, because I think we have to start there and then work our way up.
So obviously I like to talk about running dogs, right?
No way.
Yeah, surprise. And, I'm speaking specifically in the context of sight hounds here, because he already has hard an opinion about scent hounds, I'm sure, but this is leaking over into my world. The first thing he says is he's like, it's so unfair to just like run something to death. And I'm like, okay, well, so let me break down the two, I think there was 2 or 3 points. One, it's unfair to just run something down to death. That's like not cool. It's like unsporting to run an animal down. 2, you're not hunting, the dogs are. So like, it's not even fair if you're not hunting. What is the point of you going out and hunting if you don't even hunt? The dogs do. And then 3, it's you're causing and again, this comes from lack of complete ignorance. The dogs themselves are disturbing the ecosystem when a still hunter is a very quiet, silent witness to nature and is not disturbing the land. So those are the 3 things that I get mostly out of it, right? And so, yeah, I mean,
run through 3. Let's break them down. Let's go right through the 3.
Yeah. So like the first one is like obviously the worst one ever. And I'm speaking to my sight hound hunters now, you guys. So like, Chris, interject wherever you want and change it based on, the more scent hound oriented ideal there. But like the first part is where it's like, it's cruel to run something down. I kind of look around and I'm going, how every other animal ever except humans kills its prey. That's kind of weird that you would think that. Also, that's what we did for the majority of our species history. So I don't see how that's unfair. And then also and this is the core argument, you guys. This is like the core point that I always bring up. A jackrabbit or a coyote, primarily jackrabbits for me, does not care. It just exists on this landscape, right? And also it is fully aware what your dog is pursuing it. So that a firearm is shot at it. How is a projectile traveling 1,800 feet per second that is completely imperceptible to sound and sight before it impacts their flesh? How is that more fair than an animal running 40 miles an hour directly at it that it can match in both speed, agility, and distance, that it has evolved for millions of years to defend itself against a land-based carnivore pursuing it across the desert that is its home, where it lives, it knows everywhere it needs to go? How is that less fair? Also, and I'm going to take this directly from you.
No. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I want to get back to that. So I think we can expand that. You can expand that to animals all over anywhere about the predator prey type thing. You said a couple key things there. We have evolved our technology to make hunting easier, whereas my dog out there pursuing is relying on instincts that are tens of thousands of years old that have been refined to do a specific job. Nobody cries about when a wolf runs a moose down.
Yeah.
Nobody cries when a bobcat, catches a rabbit. Maybe some beagle guys do. I know that bobcats have been getting a lot of hate because of turkeys and deer populations, things like that. But predator prey is that is the ultimate fair chase. Even the most hardened animal loving anti-hunter they look at that as the natural order of things. So how is it different when our dogs do it?
Well, so he countered me by saying, like, okay, it's more quote unquote natural, but does that make it more humane? Where, like, you could just run up and club a pig to death with an oak club, or you could just shoot it in the head with a 22. He's arguing that it's less humane to run one down with dogs than it is to shoot one, right? And so, yeah. So I counter by saying, okay, the humane aspect is a moot point, because what if you make a bad shot, right? You're completely basing your entire crux of your argument that you head shoot everything, which I've been big game hunting with firearms my entire life. I've never headshot anything intentionally, because that is not the most humane way to kill an animal. First of all, and he is also a big time hunter. He should know better. And two, the humane aspect, when a dog catches a hare, do you think it's this like crazy drawn out saw torture scene? No, it's a 6-pound animal being caught by a 50-pound greyhound with knives in its mouth. It's dead in seconds. Also, again, I agree with you. Even it's so funny that it's typically the people that are hunters, that are the most opposed to that. They say it's inhumane to hunt with dogs. It is not the quote unquote libtards, because they're the ones that are like, yeah, it's how they would have died in the wild. Like a coyote catches them, that's exactly how they die.
I don't know about that.
Well, at least in my experience, it is.
Yeah,
and the people I work with, that's how
the hunting crowd isn't directly going out there and trying to eliminate hunting with dogs. Though they're not. No, they may be indirectly, and they may be sitting back silently and thinking, okay, well, if they're paying attention to them right now, then they can't come after me. So we'll go ahead. We'll make them our sacrificial lamb so that we can hunt a few more years.
I'm just speaking in my direct experience, because I agree in a broad spectrum. Of course, you're right. And I agree with you on that very much. Like I'm talking about in my specific, I typically get more outspoken criticism of hound hunting from other hunters because they're comfortable talking to me about it, because we're all hunters here. And also because, yeah, some people are just really vocal about their terrible opinions. But yeah, and so that's what I always say is like the humane aspect of it is completely a moot point. It's all swift, and it can all be done inhumanely as well. That's just not, it's just a moot point. Like it's cherry picking to try to prop up a bad point. And then so the second thing where it's like, you're not doing any of the work, the dogs are. For scent hound guys, especially, that's BS. And we all know that. Every person that goes hunting with you is like, for the first time, is like, wow, this is way harder than I thought. And the sight hound guys, we do have a little bit less of that pedestal to stand on, for sure, because these dogs really are more of a complete hunting style. They will find the game, run it down, catch it, retrieve it, all on their own. But even still, it's a team effort. I'm out there with them. And even if you do have these dogs that can find it all on their own, okay, what about if you like watching a nature documentary where a cheetah can catch a gazelle, it's cool to watch. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you any less like noble or like validated to shoot something than it does to watch a predator prey interaction, except those predators are your buddies. Like, it's just I don't know. Well, this is where it gets tough with ethics.
You said something that I liked. You said noble. You used the term noble. And somewhere we lost that, because the nobles in the old class system were the only ones that could hunt.
Yeah, because hunting with dogs is super expensive.
Yes. Yeah. But not only that, but the peasants, the low underlings, weren't even allowed to own dogs or hunt. So if you go back to the sight hound,
that's where lurchers came from. Yeah.
The royalty in the Middle East are the ones who could afford to do that. So how did we lose it? How did that shift? How did that change?
Here's my hypothesis. I think modern veterinary care really changed that. I think the mass production of dog food really changed that.
Mm-hmm.
I think by us being able, look, imagine how hard it would be to keep a pack of good, healthy dogs going if you didn't have parvo vaccinations, distemper vaccinations, dog food, just in a bag that you just go buy, a complete dog food. You feed your dogs the same kibble their whole lives and they could live and hunt for you. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, you didn't have any of that. Now the food aspect may not be as tough, feed them meat, feed them corn, feed them, scraps, whatever. But the disease aspect, the cleanliness of the kennels, managing a hound pack would be so much tougher. Mm-hmm. And I think that shift has helped anyone keep a great pack of hounds now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my hypothesis, at least. And then culturally, this is just a fact of the world, not even America, but the population is becoming more urbanized. And as bad as it is for this particular narrative, I think overall that's a good thing, because if the 8 billion people in this world lived in a rural fashion, we'd have no space. So it's in the end probably better that we're compacting everyone into these mega cities. But it sure sucks for
I don't know about that.
The cultural changes.
Yeah. That's a whole different topic, I think. But hey, have you checked out our website? houndsmenxp.com. We've got a lot of cool stuff over there. There's links over to our Patreon. All of our bonus material is there on Patreon. You get a link right to that. You can also check out all of our awesome sponsors there, and a lot of those links have built-in discount codes. So when you click on that link, it takes you to the website of our sponsor, and it's got a built-in discount code. You can find companies like Cajun Lights, Dogs Are Treed. You can even go there and support freedom hunters. All right, from our website. We're also getting ready to launch our online store. We're going to change that up a little bit, and we're going to have some cool stuff in there. We're going to have belt knife sheaths, custom made. We're going to have some cool tumblers there, our hats, t-shirt designs. All that's going to be on our online store at houndsmenxp.com. Check it out. In the United States, we broke down those barriers. Our constitutional republic that broke down the class barriers and different things. So now the people on the frontier needed dogs to do a wide variety of things. And but it just breaks my heart to see us lose that narrative. And that's really what motivates me every day to work on this podcast, is to help restore our credibility in the wildlife management circles, to restore our credibility with other hunters and things like that. So I think we'd be mistaken not to address some of the problems that have come along with that, and how people continue to damage us and fight against us in that. And one thing that Brad Luttrell with GoWild, I talked to him about this at length, and he's convinced that hunters don't do a good enough job of telling the whole story. We've talked about this for promoting this podcast. We like to talk about the hunt. We like to talk about the success of the hunt, but we don't show the backstory. We don't show, enough of us raising those puppies and being engaged in the whole story, the whole lifestyle, the training aspect of it and the time aspect and all that stuff. It's just, you get bogged down. It's cumbersome to try to tell all that. But everybody wants a shot of the grip and grin at the end. So we've painted ourselves as people that are only concerned about the end result. We don't do a good enough job of showing the process to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
and when you watch a YouTube video, you fast forward to the treed lion, the treed bear. I think that's the entire world's culture metaphor, right? I mean, you're right. And there are content creators out there that work hard to show the absolute dregs
We're doing
of hunting
better
in general.
We're doing better than we did 5 years ago, Seth. I believe that.
I definitely do. I see some content creators in the hound sphere that show a lot of failed hunts, failed trees, following a lion for 4 days and never even seeing it. I think that's really important.
Josh Michaelis has never shown any videos like that.
Did you know I never get outrun?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you fully on that. And I guess I'm going to take this from you because I really like it. I'm going to expand on it slightly. But if hunting with dogs is the most unfair form of hunting, why did we invent firearms, archery equipment, atlatls, javelins? I'm going in reverse, technologically speaking. But hunting with dogs is the least effective way to hunt overall. It's by far the most expensive, and it's by far the least successful, especially in my world. So, I mean, if I wanted to go out there and shoot 100 rabbits a day, I could. Easy. As many rabbits as I could find with a Coors Light in my hand. You know what I mean? It's one, maybe. And so that's just silly. I mean, that's just so silly. How can the most primitive form of hunting aside from scavenging be the most unfair advantage? You know what I mean? And
exactly.
It's just crazy. Exactly. Yeah, that's the best defense. I think that's the first one that can make any person be like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, obviously the atlatls and those things were developed as a weapon that were adopted into the hunting culture. They weren't developed for hunting. They were developed just like we've tracked this in our own lifetimes to see how military weapons have become that technology has been used by ammunition manufacturers to be marketed to hunting, with some limitations. Almost every state has certain limitations on calibers and ammunition and things like that. So we're not saying you can hunt with an RPG. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that, like the bullet design that you're shooting was developed through military technology, adopted to law enforcement, and was found acceptable for hunting applications. So, I wanted to clarify that so it didn't sound like we were, totally ignorant to why these things were developed. Archery was the first artillery in armies. So yeah. But dialing it all the way back, hunters have adopted that technology over time. And the first types of hunting that are documented are a man and a dog chasing a beast
with a club or a sharp stick. And hey, I don't want to sound anti-technology, you guys. That's ridiculous. That's not what the point we're trying to make. It's that when people, because I'm not out there barefoot. Well, sometimes I'm not out there in animal skins grunting at my friends. You know what I mean? It's what we're trying to say is when someone tries to use these weaponized statements against you to understand that, hey, look, this is the most primitive form of hunting. It can't be the most unfair.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell. Come on social media on one of my posts and tell me that hunting with hounds is unethical and it's not fair chase and it gives me an unfair advantage. And then I see on your feed you thermalizing coyotes, with a thermal scope. It's like, come on. What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And okay, look, I can't stand an unbalanced conversation. That's just who I am. So I'm gonna put out my own hypocrisy here. I hate long range hunting. I really don't like it at all. It does nothing for me. I find no interest in it. But here's the thing. I don't go around bashing long distance hunters, and I don't go around trying to get it shut down. That's the difference, right? It's not for me. I don't like it, but you can also just not be an a-hole about it and respect our fellow hunters and not go around thrashing people and stand by them. You know what I mean? If you're capable of making an ethical shot at those ranges, that just gets your goat. Okay, that's cool. That's for you, man. It's just not for me. And that's kind of where we're at with my buddy at work, by the way. That's where we've gotten to, where I've convinced him that it's not trashy, but he's just like, it's just not for me. And I'm like, that's cool, man. I don't like yellow cars, but not trying to get them banned.
Right.
So,
That's a key statement right there is we don't have to crucify each other or throw each other under the bus if we don't like it. I mean, when you talk about long range hunting, 200 years ago, anything over 100-yard shot was long range hunting.
Right.
As the technology has gotten better, again, it's become less of some kind of hunting feat to take a 150-yard shot. When you were shooting a flintlock and you're loading it through the muzzle, on 150 yards, there are documentations. The historical documents show people could do that, but it was not something that was normal.
Yeah, it was an exceptional creature that could hit a man off a horse at 150 yards.
Right.
Which, that's a really good shot.
We called those those were the long riflemen, the snipers. From the Revolutionary War, and they were noted. They were called riflemen. But getting back to the topic here, what's the second point that you had?
Well, it was that I'd already covered it. It was that it's trashy to hunt with dogs because they do all the hunting, and it's like we know that the houndsmen guys just know that. You guys are already ready for that. That's insane.
What was the third point?
And so, the third point was that just like it's a way. Man, I got so lost in the weeds. Where was I? So it was first off that it's hounds do all the hunting. Oh, it's inhumane to run something to death. Two, that it's trashy. Man, I got to come back to it. Right. I should have wrote it down.
Let's rewind the tape.
Yeah, we'll rewind the tape.
I think you're onto something there. So since we touched on technology, I think that's something that we battle as a hound hunting community a lot. And even on the legislative end of it, where it's being weaponized against our ability to hunt. And I just say this to start off, the anti-hunting crowd, and they have learned that they can't just come straight on for hunting. For the most part, they've been unsuccessful. They spend a lot of money. They don't get necessarily what they want. So what I see more and more is taking away somebody's ability to hunt, and that's challenging the methods. And inside the methods of hound hunting, that also includes technology, and that includes things like GPS. And I haven't seen one in a couple of years, but every year, every so many years, they revisit that and say, well, look, they're using GPS technology on these hounds. Their main goal is to stop us from hunting with hounds. And then they use the tool that we use to try to undermine us, to keep us from doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and again, that just stems completely from ignorance and just trying to weaponize an idea that hasn't been looked past even the tiniest curtain.
Mm-hmm.
That's just too easy. I think our 24-hour news cycle mentality has permeated our culture and really made it quite venomous against everybody. When we were talking last week, you were kind of starting to come at me and grill me a little bit in some of these questions. And I really liked that.
I'm still planning on it.
Yeah. I really liked that.
I just want to lay some groundwork here, for the conversation. But, the technology thing, I think, is something that houndsmen need to be prepared to answer. You need to be prepared to be able to tell people why you put a GPS collar on your dog. The GPS collar does nothing other than allow you to keep track of your dog that you have got a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment in, a lot of emotional investment in that hound. I've seen bear hunters sit down and cry over dogs that have been injured or killed, either by roadway or by beast or whatever it was. I've seen that. And so to think that there's not an emotional connection there is ridiculous, but we have to be prepared to give an answer for that challenge. And we just have to deny and continually fight that GPS collar on that dog does not make it easier for us to harvest game. It simply doesn't. The only thing that thing does for us is tell us where those dogs are. We've still got to put in the footwork to get there.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as using one of these, like you and Chad said.
Oh, the cell phone, the Onyx.
Yeah, big game hunters can just pop this up and go straight to where the elk down. Mm-hmm. You can use your digital maps to get to a place. The same way
that's exactly what's happening with this hound stuff. I even on a smaller scale. I'm talking, vast wildernesses of Idaho or New Mexico. If I'm coon hunting in Indiana, and my dogs are over a ridge, and I'm not familiar with it, with where they're at, exactly where they're at. Exactly. I'm going to pull out my Garmin and look and see where they're at, and then plan my route to them. Once I'm there, that is the time that I make the moral decision whether or not I'm going to harvest the animal or not.
Right. I mean, and that just comes from not knowing or trying to appease. That argument also, like trying to appease other sections of the hunting community that are anti-hound hunting, because it's just so easy to dispel, so easy to demolish. And so, I'm glad that a lot of our listeners are engaged to these points and are, helping form this narrative. I think that's really good. And we got a long way to go.
Well, that takes us to the point that you were speaking of just a second ago. And that is a question I put to you. Sin hound hunters can say that hunting with hounds is a catch and release opportunity. For the side hound guy, catch and release is not an option. Mm-mm. So my concern in the conversation that we had was, how can we say that you turn the prairie missiles loose to run a rabbit down and it's going to die every time they catch it? How is that fair chase?
Anytime I put a scope on a mule deer, it's going to die. How is that fair chase? The end result isn't what makes the chase fair. It is the chase, the pursuit, the harvesting of this animal. So it doesn't matter if the dogs put teeth on this game. It was the pursuit. And I'd be willing to say that sight hound coursing has as low as percentage rate as other difficult forms of hound hunting, as dry ground lion hunting or whatever other really hard. It's the only thing I know that's really hard that I've seen with my own eyes. And so it's also extremely raw and primitive. There's no, and I mean that technologically. It is, do the dogs catch it or not? In view, right there, right now. So yes, I have no option of release. And I guess some people do. I will say this is an extreme example, but there are people that have dogs that will bring them back a live hair. You can take it out of their mouth and it'll run off. So like, that's extremely rare though. That doesn't happen in my world. But the argument for that is going to have to go deeper. And I'm more than happy to like peel back some of those layers, because that we're not catching and releasing is not that big a deal for what we're doing.
So I'm stuttering around here. The thing that confuses me at times, Seth, is I will see you or hear you say that your jackrabbit numbers are very low. And so you go out, and common sense, or maybe ignorance, not even common sense, ignorance would lead me to say, okay, well, you say your jackrabbit numbers are low and you're crying your jackrabbit population. And yet here's Seth again on Saturday with the prairie missiles out there trying to find a jackrabbit to run down and kill that can't turn loose.
Yeah.
So explain that and tell me how that can be an ethical decision when you already know your jackrabbit numbers are low, but I'm going to hunt anyway.
Here's how I'd respond to this. So sight hounds are a super specialized weapon. Where we can hunt with them, very small percentage of the area that is southern New Mexico, less than 5%, maybe.
Are you pulling those numbers out of air, or is that your estimation?
That's my estimation.
Okay.
They are small remnant grasslands. And when I say small, they're enormous, but southern New Mexico is enormous. So it's all relative here. These remnant grassland patches where hare populations are already lower than the surrounding areas that are more suitable habitat. So the first point I make is this. One, there's a simple statement I heard from an old timer who's been hunting rabbits for 70 years. He says this, and it's the best way to put it. This is the most point blank thing. No rabbits, no fun. So if you kill all the rabbits in an area, you're not going to have a good time because there's no rabbits. So we are already extremely self-limiting where we go, how long we spend on the ground, and how many hares we chase. Not how many hares we catch, how many hares we catch or chase. So we're limiting ourselves to one catch a weekend, and we have been since 2020, and we only limit ourselves to 2 chases. So if we get outrun by the first hare, we'll go chase another one. We do that just to limit our time out on the landscape, stressing out wildlife, stressing out hares. Nothing else cares, really. So that's the first thing. That's the most baser response. That's the easiest to justify in any way. If I kill all the jackrabbits that live in this area, it's not going to be very fun for us. That's the first thing to say. So we already go, there is no laws about how many rabbits you can hunt, how many coyotes you can catch. It's strictly hunter honor. And it really, really sucks to spend 6 hours looking for a jackrabbit. So if you spend 6 hours, you say you find one in 45 minutes, which can happen, and you catch him, you're like, man, I just drove 3 hours one way to hunt. I found him in 45 minutes, had a 3-minute race. It was awesome. I really don't want to go home yet. No, go home, because now you just extended the amount of time to find a rabbit for the next time. So that's the first one. The second one is go ahead.
Put out a lot of information there. I got to ask questions.
No, go ahead, please.
You said that the places you're hunting, I want to make sure I've got this right, is not the most suitable habitat for jackrabbits. So if they're not where you're, common sense says if you're going to catch rabbits, go where the rabbits are. So why are you spending time out there in these grasslands to begin with?
Sight hounds are predators of the wide open. They need wide open grassland where brush covers less than 15% of the landscape. You need prairie, straight up real prairie. Rabbits hares, I'm speaking, you'll never find rabbits out there. Hares do like open land, but they prefer shrub invaded grassland even more.
Where you can't hunt, you would not run your sight hound.
Bingo. Okay. So where we live in southern New Mexico, these imagine a bowl. Imagine a huge shallow walk, like what you'd cook Chinese food in. The very bottom of the walk, the flat part, that's the grassland. That's between 2 to 12,000 acres of just grassland. But the rim of the walk is all well-draining shrubland. That's where most rabbits are. And when you jump, hares, when you jump, and rabbits too, when you jump hares on the edges of the walk, the flat part, they're inevitably going to go for the walls of the walk. Always. They're always going for the cover. And the majority of the hares and rabbits live in the walls of the walk. So they're living in the 50,000 acres that surround the 10,000 acre grassland in the middle. Hares obviously go down into that grassland because this is just I'm going to give this in a huge nutshell. If there's 100 people living in the great spot and everyone has to walk out at night to go eat in the mediocre spot, fortune favors the bold who live down in the flat spot, so they don't have to spend half the night creeping out into the food place. They're already there, so they get a 4-hour head start on the competition. So the bolder hares are the ones that live out in the grassland. The data is extremely scant on what percentage lives out there, but it's a lot less than in the brush country.
Yeah.
A lot less.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you going out and catching a hare in the grasslands, your breeding populations are still up in the shrubs and the places that you can hunt.
Yeah. So in biology, that would be called a source sink population dynamic. So you have an area that's what you'd consider a source. That's where the multiplication of their real numbers is happening. And then you have what's called a, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we don't want to educate people that much.
And then you'd have a sink, which is a place where so you have your gross profit and you have your net profit. Net profit is after all your expenses, right? So a sink is your net, you're in the loss. You may have had a lot of rabbits or hares go down into the grasslands, but most died off because of predation and whatever. So this is specifically speaking for my area, southern New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico. Places that are strictly prairie obviously have different population dynamics, but I can easily talk about that as well. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is that like where I'm hunting, that's where the least rabbits and hares are.
Okay.
So by default, you're just a drop in the bucket on the population as a whole, because we're already in a place where it's extremely risky for them to be anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So
these are important. I don't want anyone to be like yawning. This is super important, because if someone's really aggressively attacking you, it's really important to know what you're doing, so you can definitely win that argument.
Well, the reason I brought it up, and I want to do a podcast and focus on the Sighthound side of it, is because from my position, and because of my exposure to scent hounds, I can easily defend that.
Mm-hmm.
But our culture and our society of houndsmen includes sighthound guys, and I need to be able to defend that too. I need to be able to talk about that, especially, producing this podcast and having you on the podcast. I get asked about it routinely,
Are they questions similar to what you just asked me?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I want you to ask me the tough questions. I love to ask tough questions when I'm interviewing someone.
Right. Well,
there's also, go ahead. You were about to move into another point.
No, I wasn't. I was going to give you the opportunity to move on.
Well, there is one other point that I need, and this is the most important one. So here's the thing. What we're hunting matters, you guys, because how many offspring does a bear have a year? Do you know?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. Now, how many offspring
in a good year? Usually 2. In a bumper crop, we're looking at 3 to 4.
And now, how many offspring does a hare have?
I have no idea.
Exactly. A lot. They're literally a metaphor for reproduction, right? So I chased hares last year in a low population year. I chased 26. I caught 22. The elements, natural predation, cars running them over, kills infinitely more than me out there hunting. And a female hare can produce, they are only pregnant for 3 weeks, and she can be pregnant twice at the same time.
I don't even get that, man. How's that happen?
So she mates with a male. She mates. She gets pregnant. She's about to deliver.
It's not a jackrabbit that identifies as a male. It's actually a real male.
You know what? As long as they run good, I don't care. Okay. So yeah, she mates. She's about to deliver. She ovulates while she's still pregnant, finds a male, initiates their crazy cool, crazy badass mating ritual. That's like absolutely superior life form status. And then she gets pregnant again, delivers, only nurses her offspring for up to 11 days, and they're on their own. Oh yeah, she's already pregnant again, and she's going to repeat that cycle in another 3.5 weeks. So yeah, it matters what you're hunting. It doesn't really matter if they can replace themselves extremely quickly. Same for coyotes. They have an extremely legendary reproductive rate. So it's not like a bear or a mountain lion that has a super shallow reproductive rate. So that's the point I'm trying to make. What you're hunting matters a lot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's part of understanding, and that's part of the experts on fixing my truck know how the truck works, more than I do. That's why I pay somebody else to do it. So if you're going to live the lifestyle, then need to know how all of these things work. And I think that's the part that we have to stress is have some basic knowledge of wildlife management. Don't just drive down the road and the field that you see a bunch of turkeys in every day say, oh, we got a lot of turkeys, because that's the only place you look at every day. Same way with bears and all of it. We have to understand the dynamics of wildlife management if we're going to truly be credible when we stand in front of policymakers and try to justify who we are and what we do, or defend who we are and what we do.
Yeah. Which is, to me, the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, fair chase is one of those things that we're going to keep beating the drum on here, because I don't think houndsmen have championed the cause that it is. I think at one time it was viewed as something that was very noble and something that was something to celebrate, but somehow we've lost that, and we just need to keep talking about it.
I agree. Preserve, protect, promote. That's been our slogan since the beginning.
Yep. Yep, for sure.
And keep running, folks. That's all I got to say. Keep running.
Keep running. Well, Seth, you got any closing thoughts other than keep running?
No, I think I covered everything. Maybe too much.
Well, we're gonna start closing our podcast, the Monday show anyway, with this. Thanks for listening to the Houndsman XP podcast, the original fair chase method.
Love it.
Yep. Well, hey, till next time, Seth. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Hey, thanks everybody.
Hey, one thing I'd add. Make sure you're tuning in to the All Mixed Up podcast that Seth and Chad are producing, because there's a lot of information. There's going to be so much cool stuff. I mean, off the wall.
That's what it was all about.
Yeah.
I wanted to focus on all the stuff hunting with dogs. That's not just like your mainstream kind of what you think. My rat dudes, my sight hound guys, my weird bird dog people. We got a lot of crazy stuff coming. Me and Chad are going to be in a lot of airplanes this year. So stay tuned, you guys. It's going to be cool.
It is going to be cool. And it's entertaining. It's something that it reminds me of like Micro's dirty jobs. He doesn't go and just talk to the ordinary guy. He's looking for that ultra off the wall guy that's doing some crazy job. And that's what All Mixed Up is about.
Exactly. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Yep. All right. Now, thanks for listening to the Houndsman XP podcast, the original fair chase method.
See you, everybody.